Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us at our West Hartford Annual Citizens and Police Awards Ceremony. If everyone would please stand for the posting of the colors. And if you'd please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Vernon Reddick.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time to celebrate with us, to celebrate excellence. Earlier this morning, I was at St. Bridget's and Augustine School talking with the grammar school students, and as you know, the truth comes from the mouth of babes. And one of the questions that I was asked by one of the students was, how does it make you feel to be a police officer? And do you still have the same feeling now that you did when you first began? And she caught me off guard, I have to admit, which is tough to do. But I held my composure, and as I was reflecting back on the why I was going forward to this evening, to the now, part of the why is sacrifice. Part of the why is a willingness to serve. Part of the why is a willingness to make this world a better place for everyone. And as we come here tonight, you're going to see, if you read through some of these awards that we're giving out this evening, and when they are read, the descriptions, you're going to see excellence, you're going to see bravery, you are going to hear about sacrifice, and overall a willingness to serve, to put the preservation of life of others above yourself. To me, that's the ultimate sacrifice outside of giving your life for another person. So as I try to convey that to some youngsters without tearing up, I want to say thank you to the men and women of the West Hartford Police Department for what you do day in and day out. Many times when we're going out in our daily routines, we'll hear people say thank you for your service. Some sincerely mean it. Sometimes people just feel obligated to say that. But I can tell you this, I truly am thankful and grateful to be part of this wonderful organization. I am thankful and grateful to be part of law enforcement, and I am thankful and grateful for every one of you. So thank you so much. Now, I had a 10-minute speech prepared, but Assistant Chief, what's your name again? McHugh? He warned me about chiefs who go on too long, and he's got tons of experience with that. So I just want to acknowledge Matt Hart, our town manager. Thank you for your support. Come on, folks, that's the boss. From Town Council, Leon Davidoff, who's also the Public Safety Chair. Thank you, sir. Ben Winograd from the Town Council, thank you so much. And Chris Williams, also from the Town Council and the Public Safety Committee, thank you so much. And to the family, thank you, and God bless you. And Chief Riddick out. Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce our Public Safety Chair, Leon Davidoff. Oh, Sorry, excuse me. Let me jump back to the boss. Our town manager, Matt Hart.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for the invitation to be here tonight. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge our honorees and thank you for your tremendous service, both members of our department as well as our citizens and residents that we'll be recognizing tonight. Chief Riddick already recognized the council members we have in attendance here this evening. Our mayor, Sherry Cantor, couldn't be here but wanted to extend her regards as well. I want to close with one observation. You know, in my field and at the council level, we talk a lot about community policing. So what is community policing? It means different things to different people, right? It's about police officers being engaged in the community, making connections with the community, being observant. It's about taking care of lower level offenses to prevent more significant things from occurring. I think some of the things we're recognizing tonight are all great examples, wonderful examples of community policing. You know, we see citizens and residents rendering first aid and then calling members of our department. We see our officers going above and beyond to notice something, to follow up, to take action based on their connections, based on their knowledge of our community. So in my mind, that's true community policing. I think it's a big part, it's a major part of our tradition of excellence here in town and with the West Hartford Police Department. And if we can maintain that great work, we're going to be successful going forward. So thank you again, and congratulations to all of our honorees tonight. Thank you, Chief.
And now I'd like to introduce our Public Safety Chair, Leanne Davidoff.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Matt said, our mayor is in Chicago visiting with family, and she extends her regards. She usually co-hosts this program, and this afternoon I'm going to have my colleague from the Public Safety Committee, Councilor Chris Williams, assist in doing this because public safety doesn't really have a Republican or Democrat label. It really has what's good for our community. And I don't need to tell anybody in this room, but I think that West Hartford is probably the best community in the entire state of Connecticut, let alone in the nation. And the people that serve our community every single day in the public safety field, whether it be police, fire, EMS, put their lives on the line for the benefit of us regular citizens every single day, and we're quite appreciative. And one of the best things that one can do as a public service servant is to recognize excellence and to thank people for their service, because people think it's just a job, but it's not just a job. It's more than that, and it's crucial to recognize people, and that's what we'll be doing here this afternoon. This particular ceremony has a lot of personal meaning to myself. Many years ago, my dad received one of the Citizens Awards, and so I was sitting out there as a regular citizen, and I was so proud of him and how he had helped the West Hartford Police Department apprehend somebody who was doing no good. And I'll always remember that and how he felt when he came in and he just said, yeah, I was just doing what anybody else would do. And I think that's what you'll see today, is people were just doing what you would just expect a normal person in society to do, a good deed. So on behalf of all my members of the council and our public safety committee, Councilor Sweeney could not be here. He has to attend to some daycare issues with his family, so we do have other things going in our lives other than doing stuff like this, but I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to him as well. So let us begin, and we'll start with recognition awards. The first award that we'd like to present today is the West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award. This is presented to an individual whose cooperation has aided the department in the prevention of crime, the apprehension of criminals, or has performed a valuable service. If you would come up when I read your name, and then we'll read the narrative about how you assisted. The first people to come up would be Mr. David Clymer, Mr. Sean Walsh, Ms. Gabriella Downey. On June 9th, 2018, around 9 p.m., the West Hartford Police Department received a report of a car crash that occurred on New Britain Avenue and Chatfield Drive. The crash occurred when a driver made an improper left turn, cutting another car off. The driver of the car that caused the accident then fled the scene. Mr. David Clymer was driving by and saw the accident. After checking, he immediately parked his car and ran to see if anyone was injured. After checking the occupants of the car, he saw that the driver of the Jeep began to drive away. He immediately called the police department and gave the license plate and the direction of travel of the Jeep leaving the area. Mr. Sean Walsh, with his passenger, Ms. Gabriella Downey, was also driving the area, saw the crash scene, and saw the Jeep leaving the area. Mr. Walsh began to follow the car while Ms. Downey was calling 911 and giving the direction of travel to the dispatcher. Mr. Walsh was able to get in front of the car, blocked it in, and stopped the vehicle from going any further. He then got out of his car, confronted the driver, and told her to get out of the vehicle. She complied, and he waited with her until the police arrived. The driver was intoxicated, and later her breath test showed a blood alcohol content of 0.234%. The West Hartford Police Department appreciates the help and support that Mr. David Clymer, Mr. Sean Walsh, and Ms. Gabriella Downey gave, which helped with the investigation and likely prevented another accident. The department is proud to present them with the West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award.
The next award is Miss Erica Katz. Sure, absolutely. Miss Erica Katz. On December 13th, 2018, Miss Erica Katz was driving in the area of Beverly Road around 3 p.m. when she noticed a car stopping several times. Each time the car would stop, the male passenger would jump out, run to a porch, and take a package that was outside. Miss Katz noted a good description of the car and was about to call the police when she saw a police officer working a private duty job. She stopped and quickly informed him what she had seen, along with a description of the car and mail. The private duty officer quickly put the information out over the radio, and within a few minutes, a district car located the suspect vehicle. Inside the car was over $500 worth of items that had been stolen from homes, and one of the occupants was wanted by 2 police departments. The pair were also later tied into several other thefts occurring in the Hartford area. The West Hartford Police Department appreciates the assistance that Miss Erica Katz gave to the department in this case and is proud to present her with a West Hartford Police Department Recognition Award.
Next is Mr. Jacob Kinnan. Okay, well, we'll read anyway. On July 17, 2018, Mr. Jacob Kinnan was at work at Planet Bark when he observed a male acting strangely. The male seemed to be nervous and oddly dropped his backpack behind a tree and then began to walk to Home Depot and enter the store. Mr. Kinnan thought that the male might be getting ready to shoplift from the store. He called the police department and gave a good description of the male. Officers went into the area, and a short time later, the male exited Home Depot and, in fact, had just shoplifted several $100 worth of tools. The officers were able to quickly apprehend the suspect and return the stolen property back to Home Depot. The suspect was arrested for the shoplifting. Without Mr. Kinnan's assistance, this would have likely gone undetected and no arrest would have ever been made. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Mr. Jacob Kinnan with a West Hartford Police Recognition Award for his valuable assistance in this case.
Mr. Kyle Egris, Mr. William Cutts, Mr. Peter Canals. Great. Canals. On February 13th, 2019, around 9:30 p.m., Mr. Kyle Egris, Mr. William Kutz, and Mr. Peter Cannells, thank you, were driving by a home on North Main Street when they observed heavy smoke and flames coming from the second floor. A fire had started on the second floor of the home, most likely by discarded smoking materials that had ignited bedding and quickly began to spread throughout the house. Mr. Egris, Mr. Kutz, and Mr. Cannells, with no regard to their safety, parked their cars and quickly entered into the home. There they assisted the resident in helping to get his 92-year-old grandmother from the home. They also provided aid to both until the West Hartford Fire and Police Departments arrived. Emergency medical personnel treated both occupants of the home. It was through the direct actions of these men that there was no significant injury or loss of life in this incident. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present them with a West Hartford Police Recognition Award for their assistance in this incident.
If you haven't already noticed, I give Chris the names that are hard to pronounce, and I save the easy ones for me. It's one of the perks of being the chairperson. The next item that we'd like to present are Year of Service Awards. So the next group of individuals we'd like to recognize are those individuals and members of the department that have reached a 20-year milestone in their years of service to the town. Would the following please come up? Lieutenant Roger Brancofort, Lieutenant Eric Rochlau, Sergeant Christopher Day, Detective Lee Coggle, Detective Andrew Wamister, Mr. Keith Victor.
Unit citations. The next set of awards that we would like to present today are the West Hartford Police Department Unit Citations. This is presented to sworn or civilian members of a unit who exhibit exceptional professional skill and conduct during a coordinated action. So, would Officer Michael LaPointe, Officer Joseph Hopkins, Officer David Michael, Officer Generoso Coscarelli, Officer Merrick Forrester. Okay. On January 3rd, 2019, around 10 p.m., the West Hartford Police Department received a report of an armed robbery at the Subway shop on New Britain Avenue. The victim reported that a young male wearing a black mask came into the shop, displayed a handgun, and demanded money from the cashier. He fled the business without getting any money after the clerk ran from him when he displayed the handgun. Officer Joseph Hopkins was first on the scene of the robbery and located a witness who told him that the suspect had just walked behind Kentucky Fried Chicken. Officer Hopkins radio dispatched the information. Officer LaPointe heard this dispatch and immediately went to the rear of the business where he located the suspect. He exited his cruiser, drew his service weapon, and ordered the suspect to the ground at gunpoint. Officer Forrester arrived shortly thereafter, as did Officer David Michael and Officer Coscarelli. All assisted in detaining and handcuffing the suspect. The mask and a facsimile firearm was found on the suspect. The suspect was arrested on robbery and threatening charges. The department is proud to present Officer Michael LaPointe, Officer Joseph Hopkins, Officer David Michael, Officer Generoso Coscarelli, and Officer Merrick Forrester a unit citation for their good police work in this case.
The next award will be a combination of a unit citation and a departmental citation. A departmental citation is presented to members of the department who, through their own initiative and diligence, apprehends or through their actions causes to be apprehended a felon who might otherwise go undetected. Would the following people please come forward? Sergeant Brett Beliciano, Officer Christopher Leonard, Officer Jeremiah Gagnon, Officer Brandon Dzinski, Officer Stephen Dickman, Officer Zachary Kaisman. In early April, Officer Brandon Dzinski had developed information that the driver of a red Acura with a misuse of plates was operating in the area of Hillcrest Avenue, and that the driver was wanted by 2 different departments for engaging them in pursuits. He also learned that the driver had a history of narcotics and weapons charges. On April 3, 2019, Sergeant Brett Beliciano and Officer Christopher Leonard were in the area of Hillcrest Avenue and New Britain Avenue looking for a suspect in a larceny case when they observed that vehicle being driven by a male with a female passenger and 2 small children. Sergeant Beliciano and Officer Leonard followed the car as it pulled onto Stevens Street, which is a dead-end cul-de-sac. The passengers exited the car and began to unload bags from the vehicle. The officers pulled up behind the car, got out, and attempted to deploy stop sticks. Seeing the officers exit, the driver sped away and drove into the rear parking lot, where the driver exited the car and began to flee on foot. Other officers were called into the area to set a perimeter and assist in the foot chase. Officer Jeremy Gagnon and Officer Stephen Dickman located the suspect and were able to successfully take him into custody several blocks away. Meanwhile, Officer Brandon Dzinski and Officer Zachary Kaisman completed a search of the vehicle and located 360 bags of heroin, fentanyl, crack cocaine, marijuana, and roughly $1,000 in cash. Heroin and fentanyl were also found on the ground where the suspect was arrested. The suspect was arrested on numerous drug, reckless endangerment, and risk of injury charges. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Sergeant Brett Beliciano and Officer Christopher Leonard a departmental citation, and to present Officer Jeremiah Gagnon, Officer Brandon Dzinski, Officer Zachary Kaisman, and Officer Stephen Dickman a unit citation for their good police work in this case.
The next award presented will be a combination of a unit citation and an employee service award. An employee service award is given to an employee of the town of West Hartford whose cooperation or actions have aided the West Hartford Police Department in the prevention of a crime, the apprehension of criminals, or in the performance of valuable service to the department. Would the following individuals please come up? PSD Michelle Lyons, PSD Laura Cashman, Officer Andrew Teeter, Officer Kyle Davis, Officer Ross Friedman, Officer Lauren Rieger, Officer Dustin Gansey, Officer Brian Gallagher. On January 24th, 2019, around noon, Public Safety Dispatcher Laura Cashman received a call from a resident saying that there was a male at her door that had locked himself out of his car, had no cell phone, and needed the police to come unlock his car. Officer Lauren Rieger was dispatched to go and unlock the car. While en route, Public Safety Dispatcher Michelle Lyons took a phone call from the Hartford Police Department that they received a report of a male party threatening to commit suicide by cop, and that person was believed to be in the area of West Hartford. PSD Lyons quickly and accurately surmised that the male involved in the lockout of the vehicle in Hartford PD's call were related. She relayed this information to Officer Brian Gallagher, who was dispatching, and he immediately dispatched Officer Kyle Davis, Officer Ross Friedman, Officer Dustin Gansey, and Officer Andrew Teeter to back up Officer Rieger. As officers arrived, they were able to locate the suicidal person, who was walking down the street with his hand firmly in his jacket pocket. At gunpoint, Officer Rieger ordered the male to remove his hand from his pocket, which he refused. Officers warned the male that he could be shot if he did not do it, and his reply was simply, quote, "You have every right to," end quote. Officer Rieger, Officer Friedman, Officer Gansey, and Officer Davis moved to encircle the male and tried to keep him contained. The male continued to circle around, trying to keep the officers in sight, and appeared to try to provoke them to shoot him. Officer Andrew Teeter arrived, and when the male's back was turned, successfully used his taser. Once hit with the taser, the male dropped to the ground. Officers were able to handcuff him and recovered a loaded 9mm handgun that he had been holding in his hand inside his jacket pocket. The male was arrested for carrying an unlicensed firearm and then sent to the hospital on an emergency committal. A search of his residence showed several suicidal notes and a threat to go on a murderous rampage and cause police officers to harm him. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present PSD Michelle Lyons with an Employee Service Award and PSD Laura Cashman, Officer Kyle Davis, Officer Ross Friedman, Officer Brian Gallagher, Officer Dustin Gansey, Officer Lauren Rieger, and Officer Andrew Teeter a unit citation for their good police work in this case.
Before we proceed further with the awards, the Public Safety Committee saw the video of that incident at our Public Safety meeting a few months ago, and the impression from the members of the committee were our West Hartford Police Department, men and women, personnel, anybody involved, are highly trained and know how to handle situations like that without harm to themselves, and in this case, also harm to the individual who was suicidal. And it was a very moving video that we did see, and it just made us feel really good as members of the council that we have put in place the right priorities with respect to training and recruitment of officers and other support staff who understand the needs of the job and how on a minute's notice things can change quite rapidly. So I thought I'd like to share that this afternoon with everyone.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The next award that we'd like to present today is the West Hartford Police Merit Award. The award is presented to members of the Department on commission of intelligent and valuable police service which demonstrates a special faithfulness or devotion to duty. Would Sergeant Stephen Hinckley come forward?
He was unable to make it.
He was unable to make it. So we'll read why he's receiving this award. On November 9th, 2018, a resident from Prospect Avenue called 911 to report that he had just returned home and found an unknown bicycle in his driveway and an open window in his residence. Sergeant Stephen Hinckley was working a private duty assignment nearby, heard the call, and was the first officer on the scene. As he approached the backyard, he heard movement and could see that someone was fleeing through the rear yards. Sergeant Hinckley began to chase the burglar and notified police dispatch that he was in a foot pursuit. Sergeant Hinckley chased the suspect through multiple backyards and over several fences before catching up to the suspect, where he was able to take him to the ground and restrain him until other officers arrived. The suspect was arrested for the burglary and had several outstanding warrants. The suspect ultimately pled guilty and is now serving a 3-year sentence. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Sergeant Stephen Hinckley with the West Hartford Police Department Merit Award for his good police work in this case.
Would Officer Dalton Gallagher and Officer Brandon Dudzinski please come forward? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, he's a big time. On November 19th, 2018, Officer Dalton Gallagher and Officer Brandon Dudzinski were in Hartford on Weathersfield Avenue looking for a person that was wanted in connection with a domestic violence. While checking an address for the suspect, they observed a car and its occupants that matched the description of a car used in a robbery from West Farms Mall the day before. One of the occupants had been shoplifting at the mall and had assaulted a security officer that had attempted to detain him. The driver of the vehicle had fled from another officer that was responding to the call. The car parked and the driver entered a store while the passenger walked behind the building. Officer Gallagher parked the unmarked cruiser behind the suspect vehicle so it could not flee, exited the car, and went to the rear of the store and took the passenger into custody. Officer Dudzinski entered the store and was able to take the confrontational driver into custody. One of the suspects then voluntarily admitted that they had been at the mall the day before and had done the robbery. Both parties were subsequently arrested on robbery and larceny charges. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Dalton Gallagher and Officer Brandon Dudzinski a West Hartford Police Department Merit Award for their good police work in this case.
Your name sounds familiar. Proud Papa, please show the crowd who you are. Father and son.
Don't worry, my kids don't want to be on the town council. Thank you. Officer Dominic Krieko. On July 26, 2018, Officer Dominic Krieko was working a private duty job when he heard a dispatch that federal agents were in pursuit of a stolen vehicle containing a wanted federal narcotics trafficker. The fugitive had recently committed an armed carjacking, eluded police multiple times through the area in police chases, and was believed to be armed. The suspect had made comments that he would shoot it out with the police, wanted the police to shoot him, and that he wanted to kill his girlfriend. The day before, West Hartford Police Department had recovered the suspect's vehicle, which contained an arsenal of high-powered weapons. Officer Krieko monitored the pursuit and headed into the area. Officer Krieko observed the vehicle operating at a high rate of speed with no police units in pursuit. Officer Krieko got behind the vehicle. Shortly thereafter, the car crashed into a curb, and the driver fled from the crash carrying a .45 caliber handgun. Officer Krieko began chasing the suspect through several yards. Finally, the exhausted suspect stopped, turned to face Officer Krieko with both arms, shakily raised the pistol, and pointed it at Officer Krieko. Officer Krieko immediately went to cover, pointed his firearm at him, and warned him that he was going to fire. The suspect hesitated a moment, then turned his back on Officer Krieko, dropped his firearm, and laid on the ground, where Officer Krieko took him into custody. Officer Dominic Krieko showed great determination and bravery in this incident and was able to take a violent, armed felon off the street. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Dominic Krieko with the West Hartford Police Department Distinguished Service Award for his great police work in this case.
What do we do? Dominic's getting a merit also. Those.
Huh?
We'll keep that. That's okay. Just call him back up again, we'll do the merit.
Oh, so do this one again?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need to call Officer Dominic Grieco back up.
Well, you ran down the suspects. We know you're in shape.
So here's another incredible situation. On September 26, 2018, around 6 a.m., a resident on Miamis Road was sitting in her kitchen when she heard her front door open. The homeowner got up, looked down the hallway, and saw an unknown male peeking around a corner, looking at her. The male then fled the house towards Albany Avenue. Multiple police units responded and established a perimeter. Within minutes of this call, the police department received another call from a homeowner on Albany Avenue who stated that he had confronted a male that had walked through his backyard. Officers quickly located an abandoned stolen Honda Accord and set up a perimeter around the neighborhood. While on this perimeter position at Albany Avenue and North Main Street, Officer Dominic Grieco located a male standing in the mobile gas station parking lot that matched the description provided by the homeowner. The male appeared out of place, and his boots were covered in mud. Officer Grieco made contact with the male and ultimately discovered he was in possession of a Honda key. The key later fit the stolen Honda that had been located nearby. Both complainants positively identified the male. Officer Grieco had detained as the person they had seen on their properties. The male was arrested on burglary and trespassing charges. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Dominic Grieco and the West Hartford Police Department Merit Award for his good police work in this case. Thank you.
Would Officer Peter Parlos and Officer Kyle Christian please come forward? On December 1st, 2018, around midnight, Officer Kyle Christian and Officer Peter Parlos were assisting a disabled motorist on Park Road in the area of I-84. The area was under construction and there was a cone pattern to assist drivers through the construction area. The officer's attention was directed to the ramp as several cars began to blast their horns. The officers looked over and saw a car beginning to drive the wrong way onto I-84 directly into the path of exiting vehicles. The driver of the vehicle slowly tried to maneuver around the stopped cars in an effort to get on the highway. This would have had him operating eastbound on I-84 in the westbound lane. The officers began to run toward the slowly moving vehicle, and Officer Parlos began banging on the window of the car, ordering the driver to stop. The driver complied and was taken from the vehicle. He was completely unaware that he was driving the wrong way and also appeared to be heavily intoxicated. The driver was given a field sobriety test, which he failed, and was arrested. The driver refused to take a breath test, citing that this was his second DUI arrest and that he would likely go to jail. Without the quick action and intervention by Officer Peter Parlos and Officer Kyle Christian, this driver would have likely caused a serious, if not life-threatening, accident. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Peter Parlos and Officer Kyle Christian a West Hartford Police Department Merit Award for their good police work in this incident.
Pulled that last section.
Officer Brian Del Grande. On February 20th, 2019, around 7 p.m., a report came in of a car accident on LaSalle Road. Officers arrived on scene and quickly found out that a car crashed. Officers arrived on scene and quickly found out that the car that crashed had recently been stolen from a home around the corner where it had been left in the driveway with the engine running. 2 juvenile females had stolen the car. and when the car owner ran out to confront them by opening the car door, the females drove away, knocking the homeowner over. They crashed the car on LaSalle Road, a short distance away. Shortly after this incident, another car was stolen while left running in the driveway of another home in the same area. Officer Del Grande recognized the description of the two juveniles as two that were living in the area. A quick follow-up at the place where they were staying revealed their names and a likely address they might be headed to. Officer Del Grande began to follow up on the case and contacted the mother of one of the girls, who let him know where they would be in Hartford. Both Hartford Police and West Hartford Police responded to the area. There, they found the stolen car and the two juveniles responsible for the theft. The juveniles were referred to juvenile court. The West Hartford Police Department would like to commend Officer Del Grande for his good police work in this case, which resulted in the recovery of a stolen car and the referral of the two juveniles responsible, and present him with a Police Merit Award.
Would Detective Benjamin Del Monte please come forward? On September 19th, 2018, the West Hartford Police Department received a report that someone had fired several gunshots into Zaytoon's restaurant on Park Road. When officers arrived, they found that at least 5 rounds had been fired into the front of the building. Detective Benjamin Del Monte was assigned to the case. There were minimal investigative leads at the start of the investigation. During the investigation, Detective Del Monte learned that the victim knew the suspects involved in the shooting and that this was targeted specifically against the business. Detective Del Monte worked with several other agencies in his investigation, including Homeland Security and the State Department. He was able to make 2 arrests, and he currently has 2 arrest warrants for individuals that have fled the country. These were a direct result of his investigative prowess, determination, and ability to connect with witnesses and victims while interviewing them to gain information helpful to the case. The investigation is still going, as Detective Del Monte is actively working with the State Department and Homeland Security to have the 2 suspects returned from overseas. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Detective Del Monte a West Hartford Police Merit Award for his good police work.
Officer Bagan wasn't able to make it.
Officer John Begin. Unfortunately, he's not with us today, but we'll read about this situation. During the month of May 2018, the north end of West Hartford was having multiple thefts of expensive lawn care equipment. These items were being stolen from open garages or from lawn care companies that had left their truck on the road with equipment being visible. On May 24th, 2018, at 11:20 a.m., a lawn care contractor called 911 to report the theft of 3 backpack leaf blowers from the back of his truck within the past hour. Officer John Begin, hearing the call, began to patrol the area and noticed a suspicious U-Haul truck operating in the general area of the call and conducted a motor vehicle stop on it. An investigation revealed several backpack blowers and trimmers inside the back of the U-Haul. The 2 occupants of the van stated they had just come from a job site where they had been working. However, the complainant arrived and identified the items as those that had just been stolen a short time ago. 2 suspects were arrested, which also put an end to the recent rash of thefts. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer John Begin with the West Hartford Police Merit Award for his good police work in this case.
Officer Andrew Teeter. On May 25, 2018, at 4:15 p.m., the police department received a report of a serious motor vehicle accident involving a vehicle that had rolled over on Troutbrook Drive. Officer Andrew Teeter, who was off duty at the time of the incident, was traveling on Troutbrook Drive and observed the crash site prior to any emergency personnel arriving on scene. The vehicle that had rolled over sustained serious damage, and the operator was trapped inside the vehicle. The operator and sole occupant was disoriented and had sustained a head injury. Officer Teeter climbed on top of the vehicle in disregard for his own safety to provide aid to the operator. Officer Teeter stayed with the victim, treating him until relieved by West Hartford Fire paramedics and until he was safely removed from the vehicle. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Andrew Teeter a Merit Award for his actions in this incident.
Ben's going to do one. The next award that we'd like to present today is the West Hartford Police Department Life Saving Award. This award is presented to any sworn member or civilian member for a successful effort in saving a human life. I'd like to introduce my council colleague, Mr. Ben Winograd, who will present the first award.
Thank you, Leon, for the opportunity. This topic actually does have some personal resonance for me, so I'm particularly honored to read this particular award. On November 25th, 2018. Oh, I'm sorry.
Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake, that's right. I'm waiting for the names down below. For Officer Dustin Gansey and Officer Merrick Forrester. Is that the one here? On November 25th, 2018, around noon, Officer Merrick Forrester and Officer Dustin Gansey were dispatched to Prospect Avenue to escort a male to retrieve his belongings from the third-floor apartment he shared with his girlfriend. The officers went to the apartment where his girlfriend, her mother, and grandparents were present. The officers informed the residents that they were there simply to stand by while the male removed his belongings. With the exception of the woman pleading with her boyfriend to stay, all was routine. The male removed his belongings and left the apartment. Once he did this, the girlfriend jumped up from the couch and bolted to the balcony that overlooked the parking lot where her boyfriend would be exiting. She climbed onto the railing with both feet dangling over the parking lot. Both officers rushed outside, and as Officer Forrester grabbed her left wrist, she released her grip on the railing and jumped forward. Officer Gansey was also able to grab her left arm, and the officer struggled to pull her back up as she was frantically kicking her body away from the balcony. All the while, she was attempting to dial her boyfriend on her cell phone with her right hand. The officers were able to pull the struggling woman back over the railing and secured her until medical help could arrive. She would tell the officers that her intention was to jump from the third-floor apartment so that she could speak to her boyfriend. The woman was sent to the hospital for treatment. Without the quick thinking and quick action by Officer Merrick Forrester and Officer Dustin Gansey, the woman in this incident would have been severely injured or worse. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Merrick Forrester and Officer Dustin Gansey the West Hartford Police Life Saving Award for the good work in this case. Thank you.
Officer Eric Buckowitz. On April 22nd, 2019, the West Hartford Police Department received an emergency call of a 7-year-old choking in the cafeteria of the Jenga Center. Officer Eric Buckowitz was dispatched to the call and was able to arrive on the scene within a minute and 30 seconds. Officer Buckowitz found the victim lying on the floor, unable to breathe, with an AED attached. Officer Buckowitz checked for a visible obstruction in the mouth of the victim and, finding none, immediately placed the child in a sitting position and began giving him several abdominal thrusts. Suddenly, a large chicken nugget was dislodged and flew out of the mouth of the child. The child immediately began to breathe on his own. The department was later notified that the student had made a full recovery and that it was due to the actions of Officer Buckowitz that the child did not suffer any serious physical injury or possibly death. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Eric Buckowitz with a life-saving award for his actions in this case. The next set of awards we'd like to present are the West Hartford Police Departmental Citations. These are presented to members of the department who, through their own initiative and diligence, apprehends or through their actions causes to be apprehended a felon who might otherwise go undetected. Officer Merrick Forrester. On January 25th, 2019, Officer Merrick Forrester was on patrol checking registrations. While running these, he discovered a car that was driving on Park Road, which had a suspended registration due to a lack of insurance compliance. Officer Forrester stopped the car. As he approached the driver's window, could smell the heavy odor of marijuana. The driver had no license or paperwork for the car and asked Officer Forrester if he could just simply give him the ticket for marijuana and let him be on his way. Despite his plea, Officer Forrester continued his investigation and began to search the car. Inside, he discovered a handgun with 6 hollow point bullets under the driver's seat. Officer Forrester continued his investigation and discovered that the driver was a convicted felon. The driver was handcuffed and secured in a police car. The handgun in the vehicle was determined to be stolen out of Newington, and the driver was a convicted felon who could not possess a firearm. Officer Forrester also discovered 6 vials of MDMA or Molly inside the vehicle. The driver was arrested on felony firearm and drug-related charges. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Merrick Forrester with the West Hartford Police Departmental Citation for his good police work in this case.
Would Detective Sean Walmsley and Officer Jeremiah Gagnon please come forward? On the afternoon of March 28, 2019, Detective Sean Walmsley was monitoring Hartford Police Dispatch when he heard that department in pursuit of a vehicle, which had fired gunshots at Hartford officers in the area of Hamilton Street. Officer Jeremiah Gagnon got onto I-84 East from South Main Street and headed in that direction. As Officer Gagnon traveled east, he located Detective Walmsley's vehicle, who was on his way home at the time, on the highway, and they proceeded east together. Detective Walmsley then advised that the pursuit had gotten onto I-84 westbound from Sisson Avenue in Hartford. Detective Walmsley and Officer Gagnon pulled to the left side of the highway in the area just prior to exit 44. Officer Gagnon deployed a patrol rifle from his vehicle, and Detective Walmsley grabbed his stop sticks. They proceeded over the berm of the highway to the westbound side and observed Hartford PD units coming down the right side travel lane. Detective Walmsley deployed stop sticks across the travel lane. In addition to the rifle, Officer Gagnon also had a single length of stop sticks, approximately 3 feet, with him. Officer Gagnon ran at the vehicle as it slowed to a stop and threw the stop sticks in front of the left front tire, at the same time yelling commands at the driver and front seat passenger of the vehicle. Both the driver and front passenger had their hands in the air, and Officer Gagnon held them at gunpoint with his rifle as he commanded them not to move. As Hartford PD officers arrived and ran to the vehicle, Officer Gagnon continued to cover the suspects until they were both taken into custody. The firearm that was used in the shooting at the Hartford officers was also located. Without Officer Gagnon and Detective Walmsley's actions, these dangerous suspects could have gotten away. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Detective Sean Walmsley and Officer Jeremiah Gagnon with a West Hartford Police Departmental citation for their good police work in this case.
Officer Christopher Leonard. On the morning of April 2nd, 2019, Officer Christopher Leonard was traveling north on Prospect Avenue in the area of Kaya Avenue. Officer Leonard observed a black Honda Accord with very dark tints on the front and back windows. Based on this motor vehicle violation, Officer Leonard made a car stop. As Officer Leonard was speaking with the driver, he could detect the odor of marijuana coming from the vehicle. The operator was removed from the vehicle, and while getting out of the car, he admitted that he had a loaded handgun in the glove box. A loaded .380 semi-automatic handgun was loaded in the glove box. The handgun had been stolen out of North Carolina, and the driver had no permit to carry. A small amount of marijuana was also seized. The driver was arrested on weapon and drug charges. The West Hartford Police Department is proud to present Officer Christopher Leonard a departmental citation for his good police work in this case.
So before I bring Chief Riddick back up again, along with these presentations and these framed certificates, the officers do get metal pins, which you'll see if you look around, that you'll see they wear their pins over their badges. So they'll all be getting those as well. Chief? Chief will have some closing remarks and a presentation.
Where's that? My initial comments, I talked about a willingness to sacrifice, a willingness to serve, a willingness to put one's self in harm's way for the benefit of others. Did I lie? No. I think I know what you heard this evening was the quality of the police officers that we have in the West Hartford Police Department. There were several situations that you listened to where deadly force could have been utilized and would have been justified at that time. But our officers showed restraint, they showed excellent judgment, and they made a call at that time. I'm blessed to be working with them, we are blessed to be working with them, and you are blessed to have them. So again, I want to thank all of them for what they did. In closing, I'm going to make one of my assistant chiefs very angry right now. Back in 1980, I was a freshman in high school. Somebody was just starting their career. 39 years later, that somebody is ending their career July of 2019. Assistant Chief Robert McHugh. Prior to May of 2018, last year when I was hired here after retiring from the Waterbury Police Department, I hadn't heard of Assistant Chief McHugh. I didn't know Assistant Chief McHugh. I came here, and of course when you come in, you hear things about certain people, and I'm sure people heard things about me. I can say in the year that I have been here as chief, any and everything that I have asked this man to do, he has done. There are things that during a staff meeting I'm thinking about it or I mention something, then 2 hours later it's typed out and on my desk. I appreciate, as I told you privately, I will say publicly, I appreciate that. He's also not afraid to tell me what he thinks. There should be no surprise to some people, but he does that in the right way behind closed doors. And as a chief, that's what you want. I never want to be surrounded by yes people. Yes people do not have any need or any service in my mind. You're not helping the organization. Truth be told, you're just dealing and caring about yourself. So a willingness to confront, a willingness to make change, and a willingness to have longevity. 39 years is a long time. You get blamed for a lot. You get credit for a little, but get blamed for a lot. So, Assistant Chief McHugh, you can beat me up later, but I did have a Robin, and it's your buddy here, who did the research, and we talked about what a nice plaque would be. So present it to Robert T. McHugh, Assistant Chief of Police, in appreciation for your 39 years of dedicated and faithful service to West Hartford Police Department from 1980 to 2019. Presented this day, and it's a very lovely plaque. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you. Means a lot.
You're welcome. If you'd like, you can have words.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
You sure you don't wanna
Just-
have words?
Just thank you.
All
Just
right.
invite everybody up to 400.
Okay. That being said, this brings our service to conclusion. Thank you so much for spending time with us. It's a wonderful evening. We do have some food, so please step upstairs to room 400, food from Effie's. God bless you all. Thank you.